Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tournament Takes. I'm going to break down the Thursday night football slate coming up, the first game that we have on week 11 between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. Let's get into it. So we saw this game a couple weeks ago. We saw Arizona play Seattle, and it was a shootout. Just an amazing game. 37-34 went into overtime. It was the week where this game was actually included on the main slate. So there was a couple showdown lineups, I think. I'm not sure. I was actually out of town, driving back, kind of watching this game on the Yahoo app. But this is setting up to be an amazing, amazing game. I think a lot of people are looking forward to this. Kind of reminds me of the Rams and the Kansas City matchup that we had a couple years ago on Monday Night Football. It's kind of like a big Thursday night football slate. So there's some big contests out there. Let's break down the plays. Kyla Murray at the top in the flex position, $20,000 for captain. You can't say that he's too expensive because he just look at his stats. I mean, he's smashing every single week. He's got a rushing touchdown almost in every single game this year, except for against Carolina. Other than that, he's got a rushing touchdown in every single game this year. So he's giving you that high upside, in the passing game. He's giving you that high upside with rushing, and he's giving you a pretty steady floor. So I'm sure that Kyler Murray is going to be a lot of people's go-to captain in this slate. Next up, we got Russell Wilson. The Seattle Seahawks haven't looked like themselves the last couple of weeks. They're playing a little tougher defenses with Buffalo and Arizona, and we kind of saw them somewhat implode against the Rams. They weren't able to get anything going in the rushing game. They really weren't able to get the ball to their receivers as well. I mean, no one really had a great day. So this is a spot where I kind of think that this game might disappoint some people. It might not live up to the first game that we saw between them two. We got DeAndre Hopkins, obviously coming off that big catch. I'm assuming that he's going to be pretty highly owned on this slate. He had 12 targets against Buffalo. Like I said, I thought we could have that 12 to 15 target game from him. He did put that up against Buffalo. An amazing spot here again. Against the deep pass right now. Seattle is 28th in the league. That means they're 28th out of 32 in the league, giving up 60% more than average against the deep pass. Their deep targets from Arizona are going to be Christian Kirk. They're going to be Andy Isabella. They're giving up a lot down. Seattle's giving up a lot down the deep middle, the deep right, and the deep left of the field. Pretty much all deep balls they're giving up. And they're 22nd against the short pass, which are mostly short down the middle. Now, if we look at this slate, I want to kind of take you guys back to a couple weeks ago where we looked at where we had this game on the slate. There was a showdown contest. I'm kind of going to show you there was a huge tie for first place. I think this was kind of the optimal lineup. You had Tyler Lockett, who had 20 targets, 15 receptions. You had Russell Wilson in there at 12-8, Kyla Murray at 12, Christian Kirk 6-4. Christian Kirk had 2 touchdowns in that game. They weren't deep passes. They were kind of like just found him open at the top of the screen. I mean, top of the end zone. He kind of walked in for a touchdown. You did have Chase Edmonds in this game, who did get also quite a bit of work, and Carlos Hyde, which was severely underpriced, kind of went for 16 because Chris Carson got injured in that game. We had another. This is one of the lineups that I want to look at. This lineup was really unique. They had Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, but they played low-owned Larry Fitzgerald. And this is kind of something that I think people are going to overlook on this slate. We know that Kirk and Hopkins are their 1 and 2. I think Larry Fitzgerald is a forgotten man there. He is playing a bunch of the snaps. He is on the field a little bit more than Christian Kirk, actually, if you want to believe it or not. But he's not getting that volume of targets that we've seen him get in the years past. This lineup also had Chase Edmonds, and it had the kicker, Zane Gonzalez. So this was a really unique lineup, 212.72. I mean, if you had the difference, I think, between this lineup and this lineup, I mean, if Larry Fitzgerald catches a touchdown, or a couple more, what's the difference? Yeah, he catches a touchdown. This guy solo ships everything. So this is the lineup that I really liked. I thought it was super unique. in comparison to the other lineups. So going back to this slate, we see from the last time out, Kyler Murray is bumped up about $1,000. Russell Wilson's up a little bit. Hopkins is up. Metcalf is up. Lockett's up. They've increased their prices of all of them except for Larry Fitzgerald and Chase Edmonds. I think it's a little bit higher, a couple hundred higher than before. Let me just take a look. Actually, Chase Edmonds is up as well. So this time around, I think the roster construction is going to be a lot more difficult. This is a kind of slate where I don't feel comfortable rolling a bunch of lineups out there. And I feel like this is a kind of slate where if you're playing, you do want more than one lineup because the ball could be spread around to, a few different receivers who are actually going to make the difference. So this could kind of be another slate where you're going to be tying a lot of people for first place. Or you're just not going to cash because you're going to get, super unique and you're going to play one of those, 5%, 10% plays, which can either go off for you or just get you nothing. So this is the kind of slate I think I'm personally just going to kick back, crack open a beer and just watch the game. I don't think I'm going to be rolling out lineups on this particular slate. I mean, I'd love to play it, but, you got to really, know what your strengths are and kind of, figure where that money is better used. If I'm playing, even a $15 entry, I'd rather play that in, three $5 single entries on Sunday, where I feel like I have a better shot at creating a lineup rather than playing a showdown slate. But regardless, let's break this down so you guys have a better edge. If you guys decide to play, you have a better edge on the field out there. Kyler Murray, at the top, I think this is a very viable captain. Obviously, he's going to be highly owned and rightfully so. He's kind of like last year's Lamar. He provides us the rushing upside, but he also provides us a significant amount of throwing upside. If Kyler gets there, it's unlikely that either Hopkins or Kirk don't get there too. So when you're taking Kyler Murray in the captain spot, you do want to pair him with at least one or two of his receiving options, which is kind of a given. On the other side, we saw in the last game, DK Metcalf was kind of shut out. I mean, he had 5 targets against Arizona for 23 points. Now, he did have one big touchdown at the end of the game, and it won't show up in the box score. Unless you watch that game, you kind of won't know. I don't remember if it was exactly in overtime or it was just before the game ended. He had one catch where they called a penalty on the offense that he took for a 60-yard touchdown. That play ended up getting called back. So DK Metcalf has that kind of upside. It's just, Arizona's third against the deep pass in the league. They're giving up a lot down the short middle of the field. So, many people are going to flock to Tyler Lockett again, and rightfully so. The thing that's different on this slate is Chris Carson is expected to be back. So keep your eye on this. If Chris Carson is back, he is getting, a good amount of targets. He played a little bit of that Arizona game. That's where he kind of got injured, and we haven't seen him since. If he comes back, I think they're going to use Chris Carson quite a bit in the passing game. So Chris Carson, in my opinion, is a very sneaky type of play. Russell Wilson is throwing it significantly in the end zone, inside the 5 and inside the 10-yard line. They're not really rushing much, so it's not someone I want to captain, especially since you're losing out on that, that upside of having like a 30-point Kyler Murray. You really need to, the point of captaining someone like Kirk or a Drake, you're really hoping the touchdowns just go to them and Kyler Murray doesn't do as well. In this kind of game, I see a route for Kyler Murray to get there, even if they're not throwing as much. Like he just has that, that high of an upside. So the way that I look at it, I think Arizona is going to come out and kind of just dominate this entire game. Especially Lockett is questionable. If Lockett can't go, they may move Metcalf into the slot and plug David Moore on the outsides. So this is something to keep an eye on. If Lockett doesn't go, you may want to plug in DK Metcalf. Even at that expensive price, he may be getting the volume. I think they're going to find a way to try to get Metcalf the ball in this game, and they're really going to come out, I think, in this game and try to run the ball. Especially with Carson back, I think they want to establish the run so that they can open up some avenues in their passing game. So for the sake of this build, let's go ahead and take, kind of like more of a chalky approach. Let's say we take Kyler Murray at captain, and say you want to pair him with the number 1 receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. Like I said, Seattle is giving up a lot of deep passes, and, Hopkins gets some of those deep passes, Kirk gets a couple, and potentially Andy Isabella. If you pair him with Hopkins and Kirk, potentially you want, some people are going to be off of Kenyan Drake and Chase Edmonds altogether because they don't want to deal with the headache of who's going to be getting the rushes and who's going to be getting the targets. People are going to likely try to get Russell Wilson in there and Tyler Lockett. So you might see some people do some stuff like this. Maybe they'll captain Kirk. They'll play, they'll captain Kirk. Maybe they'll play Kyla Murray, Tyler Lockett, Hopkins, and they might try to go, with someone like a Dan Arnold and a $3,500, maybe a Cardinals defense getting a couple of turnovers. So they may not have Russell Wilson in this lineup, or they may remove Hopkins and try to go with like a Russell Wilson here, and then figure out, okay, if they're not playing the Arizona defense, maybe they'll play an Andy Isabella. Something like this is kind of what I anticipate people are going to do. They're going to try to jam in as many studs as they can possibly get. You got the correlation with Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett. You got Kyla Murray to Kirk, Arnold, and Isabella. You don't have the big receivers. So maybe this isn't necessarily a chalk bill. I think people are really going to try to get to Hopkins and try to get to Kirk. Something like this may be a little different. Now, Kirk has that upside. So, the chances of Kirk outscoring Kyler Murray are kind of low. But he's the type of player that can go and get a 60-yard touchdown or a 70-yard touchdown. And that kind of unlocks a certain type of floor, unlocks a certain type of ceiling at a captain spot where you may not necessarily get from, DeAndre Hopkins, because the price is so expensive. You can't fit this kind of lineup in with the DeAndre Hopkins. So, Kirk is actually a good captain play. A lineup like this might be a pretty significant, a pretty decent play in my opinion. Andy Isabella is not on the field as much, but he also does catch those deep passes. Dan Arnold, we're seeing more recently, they're using him kind of in the passing game a little bit more. He's on the field only about 50% of the time, but when he's on the field, he is running routes. So he got 4 targets the last game. I think people are going to see this and kind of try to jam him in. He had 3 targets for 57 yard, a long one being a 41 yard catch and run against the Seahawks. So a lineup like this, you're kind of going for the deep shot receivers, right? You're going for Kirk, you're going for Arnold, you're going for Isabella. You're kind of avoiding the volume in this scenario. You're not taking the safety of a Hopkins or safety of a Metcalf, but you're getting enough. I feel like enough safety with a Tyler Lockett and a Russell Wilson. But because there's very hard value to find, something like this may be a little more chalkier, right? So something like people might notice something like this, and they might create a build like this very similar to yours. Another reason why I'm not playing, it's kind of hard to get different on this slate without sacrificing so much at the captain spot. So this is one lineup I really like. If you're going to play, this is one that you can take kind of an approach. You're kind of expecting a shootout, and you're taking Kyler Murray with a couple deep shot receivers. We might notice that Chase Edmonds in the last game against Arizona, or against Seattle, he had 21 fantasy points. He had most of his work in the passing game, like 7 targets for 87 yards. I think Chase Edmonds is actually a really, really good play. Kenyan Drake was also in that game. He didn't do very well because they weren't rushing the ball as much. But Larry Fitzgerald as well, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like he's also another good play because in this game he was getting significant volume. Against Seattle, he had 8 catches, his highest of the season, because they're giving up a lot down the short middle of the field. They're 22nd again against the short pass. And those short passes down the middle are kind of going to Larry Fitzgerald. He's on the field more than Kirk, so he does provide you some stability. So if you don't like that Kirk captain lineup, maybe you say, okay, I don't want to get different at Kyler Murray because he has that high upside. Maybe you say, okay, instead of taking the deep shot receivers, maybe I'll take some. Maybe I feel like the game is played a little slower, and maybe they try to methodically work their way down the field as opposed to taking those deep shots. Maybe you plug in a Chase Edmonds and you plug in a Larry Fitzgerald. Now, you still want to try to get, someone on the other side. Like I said, Chris Carson could be sneaky if he plays. He is getting some passing work. Arizona's not a great rushing matchup, but they are giving up, some passes down the short middle of the field. And Chris Carson is a pass catching running back. Right now, if we look at it, their running backs are Carlos Hyde, Chris Carson. They sent Alex Collins down. Travis Homer is doubtful, and DJ Dallas at 600. If Chris Carson doesn't go, I think you're gonna want to take some shots at DJ Dallas, because I feel like he could get there in the passing game. We've seen him get volume in the passing game. This is a spot where I think you might want to take a shot at him. So he's relatively cheap. So let's anticipate that, okay, perhaps maybe Chris Carson does not go tomorrow. We get word that he doesn't go. A lot of people are going to flock to Carlos Hyde. And Carlos Hyde is getting, quite a bit of targets as well. But at 600, I feel like he has similar upside to, DJ Dallas has similar upside to Chris Carson. And this is solely if we hear Carson is out. I feel like DJ Dallas has similar upside to Carlos Hyde, that you can plug him in at 600. And say you want instead of deciding, okay, I don't know if it's going to be Tyler Lockett, or if I don't know if it's going to be DK Metcalf, you just lock up all the red zone work with Russell Wilson and DJ Dallas. That leaves you about 8,100 left. You can say, okay, I want, the lineups down the middle. I feel like they're going to be able to move the ball with Chase Edmonds and Larry Fitzgerald. I do have Russell Wilson, and I kind of have DJ Dallas as his pass catching receiver, right? You're not getting a Tyler Lockett in that scenario, but you're getting someone who could potentially catch passes out of the backfield. You can go ahead and plug in, Christian Kirk and kind of take a deep shot. He's kind of there for the deep shots. He's getting similar work to DeAndre Hopkins in the red zone. So it's someone that I think also it could be a viable build. In case you guys haven't noticed, in the last two builds, I haven't included DeAndre Hopkins. Now, DeAndre Hopkins has a huge upside. I just feel like on this slate, he's only $1,000 cheaper than Russell Wilson. I feel like if I'm paying that price, I kind of want to go Russell Wilson. If you anticipate the game to be close, it's going to be very hard to get DeAndre Hopkins into your lineup with, Kyla Murray and Russell Wilson without sacrificing too much. So, let's say if we wanted to play DeAndre Hopkins and, we wanted to play Kyla Murray at the captain, you're literally only left for 2,600 per spot. So I feel like the opportunity and the production that you're giving up at these three spots are a lot more than what DeAndre Hopkins is going to get you at this one spot. So for this particular slate, if I was playing it, DeAndre Hopkins would be my fade. I would not play him in this scenario. And that's not to say that he's not going to have a 30-point game. And that's kind of why also I'm a little more hesitant, and I kind of don't want to play this slate, and probably won't play this slate, is because it's very difficult to build lineups at this without punting at a bunch of other positions. I mean, you can go out and say, okay, the Cardinals defense did, very well last time against Seattle. They put up 7 points at, 3,200. It's not bad. Let's say we take Cardinals defense. Say we want to take Dan Arnold. He had a good game last time. Let's see if we can plug him in. And then let's plug in Andy Isabella. So, something like this is what you're going to end up with if you're getting, Russell Wilson in your lineup. Or if you, instead of, plugging in Andy Isabella because he's not on the field as much, say you plug in the $600, you plug in maybe a Will Dissly as kind of like a pairing with Russell Wilson. So with the tight ends, there's so much on the Seattle side that take away from each other. You have Russell Wilson, Will Dissly, and Jacob Hollister. So you have Will Dissly, Jacob Hollister, and Greg Olsen, right? So they all take away enough from each other. So it could be any one of them down the middle of the field, right? You don't know who it's going to be. So this is a slate I think you guys should take a little lighter, kind of, save your money, just enjoy the game. It's not necessary that you got to play every single slate. But if you are going to, just try to get a little different. I think Hopkins' ownership may be high. It's really kind of tough to gauge where it's going to come in at with this particular slate, given that he's had that catch. I think people are going to want to plug him in and want to plug him in with Russell Wilson, but people are also going to be a little more hesitant because this is the lineup construction you're going to get with Kyler Murray at the captain. Now, you could always say, okay, if I want to plug in a cheap captain, if I want to go with, perhaps, let's say, the cheapest captain I can find that's going to give me that potential upside, it's going to be difficult, right? Like, the only person that I see that can get you a 30 at a captain spot is going to be the quarterbacks. Potentially, a DeAndre Hopkins, a Christian Kirk, maybe even like we saw in the last slate, a Tyler Lockett. So if you plug in Tyler Lockett here, you plug in Hopkins, Russell, you're going to want Russell Wilson, because the only way Russell Wilson gets there, I mean, Tyler Lockett gets there if Russell Wilson's throwing him touchdowns. Unless he gets like 15 targets, 15 catches, or say, 15 targets, 12 catches for 80 yards and no touchdowns, he could potentially get there. But if, Russell Wilson's throwing it that much and they're not moving the ball, then I think the game is going to be more run heavier, right? So if you're having Tyler Lockett and the captain, you do want Russell Wilson with him. Say you want Hopkins, you can't fit Hopkins and Murray essentially, right? So you're going to have to decide, okay, if I just want a naked Kyla Murray, I want him for the rushing upside, and then I want to play maybe Andy Isabella, I want to play Dan Arnold, and I want to play, you don't have enough for, maybe you want to play Chase Edmonds as opposed to Andy Isabella. Let's see if we can get some different at 3,300, right? You can go with something like this. So like you're getting Kyla Murray, you're to Dan Arnold and Chase Edmonds. So you're getting the deep targets to Dan Arnold. You're getting some lower, short 8-op targets to Chase Edmonds. And then you're hoping to get a couple of turnovers from Russell Wilson. What this kind of lineup would mean is that, say Russell Wilson, you want Russell Wilson to kind of throw a pick six or something like that. So, your Cardinal defense scores, and then you want them to kind of play from behind and continue throwing it and feeding Lockett. So there's many different ways you can see this game going. I think in, other showdown slates, you kind of see 1 to 2 paths of the way the game goes. Like on Monday Night Football, we saw, okay, if Minnesota gets out ahead, they're going to rush the ball, and most likely it's going to be Nick Foles throwing the ball. But what ended up happening is you saw Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, and kind of Nick Foles kind of not really getting there. They're playing from behind, but they weren't really getting there, right? They were close enough to where it wasn't getting there. So there was only 2 or 3 ways it can go. In this particular game, because we've seen it happen already, we know that the defenses are gonna adjust. We know the offenses are gonna adjust. They kind of saw what happened in the last game. I don't think it's very likely the game plays out like it did before. I think the more likely way is a build like this, specifically where you're seeing maybe Seattle play from behind. I don't think Seattle gets out ahead in this game, especially because Arizona is pretty good against the run, and they're pretty good against the deep passes. So it's going to be methodical drives mostly for Seattle. And Russell Wilson, he hadn't had a pick for a really long time, and I think in the last 2 games he's thrown 4 picks. 4 picks in the last 2 games. He threw 3 picks against Arizona. I mean, he's had he's had a lot of interceptions. So you're kind of hoping that, okay, if he does throw one of these picks, it's maybe on a slant route that the defense jumps ahead. They try to force feed DK Metcalf this game. They try to get him on a screen pass. You see the defense read it and just take it to the house. But we saw that one play. I don't remember if it was if it was this game, but we saw Russell Wilson throw a pick, and it almost got ran back for a touchdown, and DK Metcalf came and tackled the guy who picked it off. It may have been this Arizona game. I don't remember. But you're kind of seeing that's kind of what you're hoping to do with this lineup. So on this particular slate, there's many different ways you can go. My only kind of little tidbit of advice on this one would be to fade DeAndre Hopkins. And it's not a pleasant feeling to do, but this kind of slate, you're going to see, I would bet that you're going to see a bunch of ties at the top, a bunch of lineups that are very similar, because it's going to be very spread out. A contrarian play would be like someone like a Kenyan Drake, because Seattle is pretty good against the run, and Kenyan Drake is not being really used in the passing game much. We're seeing Chase Edmonds get all that passing game work. So if Arizona jumps out to a lead, and they want to just run the clock out, you could see Kenyan Drake get 15, 16 carries, and and kind of just run the clock out that way. So it could be a contrarian take to kind of take Kenyan Drake and expect Seattle to pass. On the other side, you could say Seattle gets out in front, and you still want a bunch of the Arizona pass catchers and the Arizona quarterback. So in this particular game, I showed you guys kind of three different ways the game could go. So, it's not clear cut right now. It's not as cut and dry as the other slates. So if I had a lean, I would take the lineup with Kyla Murray at captain. I would kind of lean to try to take the lineup that if I was building right now, if I was going to play the slate, is the lineup I would take Christian Kirk at captain because I want that deep shot upside. I would take Kyla Murray in one of the flex spots. I would take Russell Wilson on the run back. I probably would want a bit of Chase Edmonds for the short targets as well as potentially a Larry Fitzgerald. And then I also don't mind the what was the lineup? Sorry, Chase Edmonds, Larry Fitzgerald. Sorry, Dan Arnold. Tyler Lockett. And Andy Isabella. So a lineup like this, right? You want the deep shots to Christian Kirk. You want the deep shots to Andy Isabella. You want some deep shots to Dan Arnold. You're gonna miss out on those, those targets to. You want Dan Arnold, Andy Isabella, and Christian Kirk. You're gonna miss out on those passes to Larry Fitzgerald. You're gonna miss out on those passes to DeAndre Hopkins. But this lineup essentially is you're playing for just the ultimate upside. You're hoping that Kyler just throws a bunch of deep passes in this game, and you have Christian Kirk catch 2 deep passes. You have Dan Arnold catch a couple deep passes. You have Andy Isabella catch 1 deep touchdown. So it's difficult, but the more I think about it, it's really hard to fade Kyler Murray at captain because there's so many different receivers that can get there, that he provides that kind of upside that I don't think Russell Wilson provides you in this particular game scenario. So good luck, guys. I'm going to be back doing the Week 11 preview, and good luck out there. Enjoy the games.